Welcome back to Uncomfortably Creepy, where Reddit stories are never as harmless as they seem. Creepy Dollar Tree Man. Here in the States, we have a dollar store called Dollar Tree. My daughter used to love going in just to look around. We went in one afternoon in about 2006. We were just looking around and enjoying our time together in luxury. At the time, she was about 10 years old, so I'd allow her to look at things she wanted on one aisle. As I looked around at items, I'd be on the direct aisle next to it. Every few minutes, I'd go onto this aisle and check on her, and see if she wanted to move on to something else. Suddenly, I noticed a tall man just kind of hanging around where we were browsing, and he didn't seem to be looking at anything in particular, and honestly not looking at anything at all. It was more like he was just waiting for something, and it just kind of set my senses off. Gave me a strange vibe. So I went directly to where my daughter was and stayed directly next to her with my hand firmly on her arm. She could tell something was off, looked at me quizzically, but didn't verbally question me. I tried to change aisles but staying in the same area, but within seconds he would be right next to us on the new aisle. I quietly told my daughter to please not ask questions, but just please follow me no matter what I did or where I went. Surprisingly, she did, so because ordinarily she was full of questions about literally everything, I decided I would cross the store to a far corner in the opposite direction, and within a minute he was right behind us. I immediately went to another far off part of the store, same thing. Within a minute, he was right behind us. I did this about 4 to 5 different times, and each time he ended up where we were. The stationery, the grocery area, the makeup aisle, etc. I was very nervous, but I was young and thought about telling an employee, but decided I didn't want to cause a scene. Again, I was a young mom. At some point, I told my daughter the basic of what was going on and told her under no circumstances leave my side or let go of me. I was so freaking out, I just decided we'd check out and come back another day. Well, as soon as we got in line to check out, the man got in line at the register next to me, and it seemed as though it was because that line had roughly the same amount of people, and perhaps he wanted to leave the store as we were leaving. The second we were finished checking out, he headed straight for the door. I told my daughter to take my hand and to not let go no matter what. And again, she did exactly what I said without question. I told her when we got in the car immediately, get in and lock your doors. While I get in, she did so. I chanced to look back and said this man was coming right behind us, but far enough away that we were walking very quickly and had time to get in the car without him catching up. We lived right down the street from the store, but I took a very scenic route home to make sure I wasn't being followed. I don't know what his intentions were, but it felt sinister whether it was or not. To this day, my daughter brings this story up every now and then, and it's been almost 20 years since it happened, and I still get sick to my stomach when I think about it. Whatever he actually wanted, I hope to never be in that situation again. So creepy Dollar Tree man, let's not meet again. A stranger has been breaking into my basement for months, and my roommate and I are just gonna let him. So about 2 years ago, me, 20 female, and my close friend, 20 female, moved into a rental house in a mostly safe city. The house is nice, rent is expensive, landlord forgot we exist, perfect. A few months later, a super sweet family, mom, dad, who is a police officer the next city over, and 2 young kiddos, moved in. This is relevant. The house that we live in, I still live here, has a partially finished basement, mostly underground. Outside access only, with a couple windows. I say partially finished because the owner told me that a tree fell on the house several years ago, and the foundation was built around it, so it's just kind of a big gap hole in the back of the basement, basically a huge crawl space. The basement is really creepy, all kinds of random holes in the walls. We have never put anything in there besides a few little Christmas decorations and an old recliner I need to get rid of, and because of that, never felt the need to lock it. In the basement is our hot water heater and a random empty one not attached to anything that the landlord said has just been there. Another note, the yard is fenced in, and I had a dog who goes between outside and through a doggy door. While we were at work all day, he's a mini Aussie. Is a treat to no one and trusts absolutely everyone. He would bark at first, but if you don't hurt him and say a few nice words, he would hand you the keys to my house, car, and safety deposit box if he could. In the yard, there's an empty chicken coop left from the owners before and current owners. So not my landlord, but the guy before him. His chicken coop. Both of these things are relevant, I promise. So one day, a few months into living in the house, I'm getting out of my car after work, and neighbor guy, the cop, comes up to me. He tells me that a man in a red truck pulled into the driveway and started trying to get in the backyard. Obviously, my neighbor knows that it's not myself, my roommate, or my boyfriend, so he asks him what he was doing. He tells my neighbor that he wants to look at several numbers on the hot water heater in my basement. My neighbor tells him to go away and come back with one of us or home, because he's a nice neighbor and doesn't know who this dude is trying to come into my yard. Now, my landlord drives a red truck, so at this point, I'm thinking it was him, and he just forgot to let me know he was coming. So I send him a message. It was not him. I have some back and forth with my landlord and neighbor, and we determined the man was the owner of the house before my landlord. Let's call him Jim. Once we figured this out, landlord tells me he'll get a hold of Jim, figure out what he needed and why he was at my house, and we will go from here. Landlord couldn't get a hold of Jim. He does not come back. This is for several days, until I'm at work one day, in my car, on my lunch, and my doorbell camera goes off. I open it, say hello, and there are 2 detectives from a different state knocking on my door. Who are they looking for? Jim. Why are they looking for him? Oh, only because he was wanted for stolen guns and other illicit substances. And my house was an address he had on file. I quickly filled them in on what had happened, and they immediately were suspicious that he had hidden something in the basement or tried to sneak back to get it. I traded numbers with the officers, and they told me to put a lock on the basement door because who knows how long he'd been crawling around in there before my neighbors caught him. Fence is short, and we didn't go in the basement a lot. There's big mean spiders in there. And the time it takes for the detectives to organize local officers to come search my basement, Jim makes 2 more attempts. The first is on my cameras. He rings the doorbell and bangs on my door. The camera's almost dead and doesn't alert me until later, and the image is grainy and discolored, but you can see his face and the red truck in the background. The second is my landlord, Jim, supposedly tells my landlord that he was trying to get the chicken coop out of the backyard, which is not at all what he told my neighbors. Shortly after, I come home one day. The basement door is now locked, and the door to the chicken coop has been open and riffled through. Now I know my little Aussie ain't doing that. Nonetheless, detectives come and search the whole yard and basement area, including the crawl space, and find nothing. Sign all documents, making a couple friends in the few counties. Landlord comes to take the chicken coop. We think since there's nothing there at all, Well, we live in Tornado Alley, so we get some nasty weather. One morning, my roommate and I are out with the dogs after a storm. Not a big one for the area, but decent winds for sure. And we walk around the side of the house. My roommate looks at the house and then looks at me and says, "Has that window always been busted in?" "It has not," Jim strikes again. I unlocked the door and went inside. Smart. Furious that Jim had the audacity to come back months later. All of our things had been ruffled through and moved, recliner shifted, tub opened, decorations skewed about, and that damn empty hot water heater was moved around also. Myself, my family, my work best friend, boyfriend, and detectives all had dug through the basement at this point because we thought we'd find something, but I guess this guy hid his stuff pretty well. So after realizing that the basement was obviously gone through, I called the local cops. Out-of-state detectives can't help unless local cops are involved, so we've been taught. So my friends in other counties are not aware of this. Cops show up, tells the busted window was from the wind, puts it back up and leaves, ignores my stuff thrown around and the fact that the basement has been broken into. We got hit by a tornado a few months later. Trees fell onto the yard, windows were fine, but yeah, you're right, the wind broke into my basement. Anyways, after that last excursion, my roommate and I kinda came to a few realizations. A, he can't get to the house unless he squeezes through the doggy door, and at that point, I would just be impressed by his effort. He didn't really seem interested in the main house, just the stuff he needed to come back to get. B, the local cops aren't helping, so there's no more need to cause a tizzy. C. He probably got what he needed out of the basement the last time anyways, so ideally, he'll find another place to stash his stuff. D. We don't have anything valuable in the basement. If Jim wants my nanny's old Christmas ornaments, he can have them. E. He hasn't let my dog out yet, so clearly, either my dog likes him and won't leave him alone, or he jumped the fence and endured the Aussie's endless barking and nipping and trying to herd him to his favorite patchy yard. Either way, Jim is not winning there. So pretty much, this guy's been breaking into our basement, and the last time we tried to get help, it was a waste of time. So Jim, please stop stashing your scary bits and bobs in my basement. I'm just a girl, but obviously you don't want to hurt us, so just don't go in the house and don't take my dog. You'll bring him back real quick anyway. Unsettling delivery. This story happened back in fall of 2023. It wasn't a scary experience per se, but it was unsettling. I had just left my full-time job of 4 years and needed income to pay my bills, so delivering for Uber Eats seemed like a pretty good choice. I should add, I used to deliver for Uber Eats during the lockdown in early 2021 for some extra money and did well, so that was an obvious choice. I enjoyed the freedom of being able to work my own schedule however I saw fit, so I quickly re-downloaded the app and began doing deliveries. In the area I delivered in, between 6 p.m. and 2 a.m. were the best times to go out, and I actually made some pretty decent money during those hours. It was around midnight when I got that oh so familiar ding of a new order. It was a decent order, around $8 for a few miles, so I tapped the screen and accepted the delivery. Right off the bat, I noticed something strange. The customer's name and the order details only showed a bunch of random letters. I've seen some pretty interesting names before, and sometimes every single letter, but never just a bunch of random letters. I chalked it up to a glitch in the system for the most part. People don't want to interact with their drivers, which I actually prefer as an introvert. So that's when I saw the hand to customer option on the order. I let out an audible groan. But nonetheless, I headed to the restaurant to pick up the order. When I got to the restaurant, to my surprise, the order was ready. I grabbed the bag from the worker, thanking them, and tapped the pickup option on the app, and began the route to drop off. The delivery was in a quiet part of the city. As soon as I pulled in, I immediately got an uneasy feeling. It was a part of town I had never been in, small, low-income neighborhood that almost looked abandoned. My GPS led me to an old building on the street, pulled into a parking space, which were right in front of the drop-off. The building was very old, unkept, single-story apartment facing the street. There was almost no lights, with the exception of a faint orange glow from one street lamp nearby. I prefer to back in when I park. I've always done this, something about it just feels safer. So I backed in, right in front of the drop-off door, grabbed the bag, and stepped out. There was this eerie quietness that only made the situation more tense. My car was literally parked 10 feet away, so I didn't have to walk far. I knocked on the door and waited. I heard movement on the inside. About 10 seconds later, the door opened. It was a skinny, darker-skinned woman, probably early to mid-30s. She had these cuts on her hands and arms like she had been in a knife fight. Her mouth was very dark as well, almost like she had wounds or blood on her, but I couldn't tell. Her living room was completely dark, no lights on except the faint blue glow from a distant TV. I greeted her and handed her the bag. Usually it's a quick, friendly, awkward experience, and I move on with the night. But this woman stared at me. She had no emotion whatsoever. Her eyes were glazed over, almost like she was sedated. I smiled, told her to enjoy. She slowly reached and grabbed the bag. I was waiting for her to say something, but she just kept staring at me blankly with no emotion. I was immediately weirded out and felt like something could pop out of the darkness or walk up behind me at any second. So I sped walk back to my car. I heard the door shut right as I got back to my car. I hopped in, locked the doors, and immediately took surveillance of my surroundings. I started driving off. I looked over my passenger seat window and saw her looking out the living room window at me. I got out of there quickly as I could and wrapped up my night shortly after. There was something so creepy and unsettling about this whole experience. From the random letters on the order, the area, the woman's appearance, standing there like an emotionless zombie, staring, not saying a word. If you're thinking about driving for a fast food app, do it, because it could be a great side income. But be careful, sometimes you find yourself in pretty weird situations. Thank you guys for listening to some more stories from Reddit from r/letsnotmeet.